Dabney, and you log on, and you come to this screen. Okay, so everybody be there. Once you go here, to go into Blackboard, of course, you click on this, but to go into the spreadsheet, you click on Gmail. So what I'm going to ask you to do is if I go too fast, stop me. Don't let me get too far ahead before you let me know something, because then it'll take more time. So I'd rather you interrupt me than, so don't worry about interrupting me. Okay, so you go to the waffle and you click on Sheets. And you probably don't have this because you probably haven't used it before. So you're going to create a new spreadsheet, you click on the blank spreadsheet. So the data that I've given you is the unemployment rate from 2007 to 2017. So we're going to make a couple of different graphs associated with that. And then the second one is going to be a pie chart. I just made up the numbers, but it's a pie chart with different ethnic race. So we're going to take the number of people in those particular categories, and we're going to find out what percentage they are. And then we're also going to plot a pie chart with that information. So the first thing we're going to do is just basically enter the data. But so first of all, what I want you to do is to type in this cell, which is cell A1. Just click on it and start typing, put year. And you can get to any other cell. If you want to go to the next cell over, you could use tab, or you can use your right arrow key, or you can just click on it. That's cell B1, column B, row 1. And go ahead and enter what it says, unemployment rate. Now, at the end of class, or when we finish this, I'm going to have you email me this. So you do need to complete it, or you'll suffer some terrible consequences. Okay, so we're going to do the year, but we're going to use that automatic fill-in approach. So type 2007, and then 2008. And I could just continue typing, but what you want to do is you want to highlight the two cells, A2 and A3. If you move your cursor over the little black box or blue box on the corner, click on it and then drag it down. And we want to go to 2017, so that's 10 years. So we probably want to go down to the 12th row. So if you pull outside of the sheet, you'll go down. And you should now have it filled in automatically so that we've got all years from 2007 to 2017. Everybody okay? Yeah, let me come. Yeah, you have to highlight both of them. No, you can just. So what you do is you click here and you just drag it down, so you highlight both of them.
Oh, I got you.
And then you grab on the corner, just drag it down.
Sounds good.
Like that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that is probably because you've got to do 2008. Otherwise it doesn't know that you're doing a pattern. If you only have a single, so if you just have a single entry, if you just put 2007 and clicked on the corner and dragged it down, so I'll just do it to show you how it works. So if you put 2007 like that, 2007, and you click on the one cell and you drag it down, it's just going to copy that number. But if you have two numbers and you highlight the two cells and drag it down, then it'll automatically realize that you want to fill it in with numbers in sequence. Now, it turns out, we'll do this later, you can also copy equations. So if you put an equation in here, which we'll do with the pie chart, you can copy the equation easily as well. Okay, now the unemployment data you're just going to have to enter in. So go ahead and enter in the data, and all you'll do is just type it in, push return, and just double check your answers when you finish to make sure you haven't made any mistakes. You'll notice that if you put 8.0 in, it'll just truncate it to an 8, just 8. If you actually want 8.0, you have to tell it to do that. If you put a decimal, if you put 8.1, it knows that you want 8.1. Well, it's not rounding off. It's just dropping the 0. So we don't need to do this, but I'll go ahead and show you. If you wanted to format all of these so that they were something point something, you would highlight the cells that you want to do this to. So I'm going to highlight all the cells. And the format command, there's a whole bunch of formatting stuff you can do. And some of it's actually right on this menu here. But if you go to format, number. So before we actually do it, there are all these different ways of formatting it. Number is the normal one. If you have decimals, like 0.5, you can change that to 50%. So if you're dealing with percent, in that case, I actually entered it as numbers, not as decimal, and converted it to percent. We could have done that. This is scientific notation for big numbers. Then there's some accounting if you're dealing with money, if you have a date. So there are these different ways to format it. If we want to format a number, oops, what happened there? Format number. Now this is actually going to format it to tenths and hundredths. The question is, how do you do it if you want it to 1 decimal point? So let me just zoom out a little bit. Yeah. So in this case, if you wanted something other than 2 decimal points, you would go down to here, and you can see that now I have 8.0 and 5.0 instead of just 5 and 8. Okay.
Can you back up a step?
Sure. So what you do is you highlight the numbers that you're trying to format. You go to format, then number, and I chose this one all the way down here. You probably do, but you've got to zoom out a little bit, so do Control minus to make your screen a little smaller. Oh, well, click on more formats. Let's see what that says. Yeah, custom number format. Yeah, so that's the lower, and then choose the one that would be, let's see here. I don't see it. Keep going down. What you're looking for is something here that looks like, okay, haven't seen anything yet. Okay, interesting. Okay, I know what to do. You can see the way this thing's formatted. You've got, they use a hashtag and then a decimal and then a hashtag. So I think if you went up to where it says custom number format and you put in hashtag period hashtag and then apply that. That didn't actually do it, did it? Okay, let's try again. It's not critical that we do this, but I'd be kind of probably, I don't know why mine is different than your guys. Oh, number.
If you have to do hashtag
comma, hashtag, hashtag 0.0.
Oh, really? Okay.
We'll do it.
So it's hashtag, comma,
Hashtag, hashtag,
comma, hashtag, hashtag,
yeah.
pe
0.0.
point, hashtag or?
No, 0.0.
Oh, oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's, I'm going to come over and look and see what you did. So you actually put a 0 in there to show the decimal points?
Yeah. I did.
Yeah, and once you do it one time, it, oh,
Yeah.
hashtag, comma, comma. Yeah, probably, I bet if you just put 0.0 in there, it might do it. Let's try that. I think the zeros is to tell you that it's associated with the decimal. Let's just try that. So if we go down here to more formats, custom number format. So if we just do 0.0, I bet that, let's apply that. Yeah, there it goes. So you didn't need the hashtags in there if you're not dealing with thousands. So if you go down to the bottom where it's number and you'll see custom number formats, I think the way it works is if you had thousands, if you want the thousands and millions separated by a comma, you go hashtag, comma, hashtag. That would tell you that you want commas when you have big numbers. And then you do 0.0 if you want one decimal. If you wanted two decimals, you do 0.00. And we only wanted 10. And you actually don't need the hashtag if you're only worried about getting the decimal in the right place. So you could get by with entering 0.0, and that gives you one decimal point. And the reason I must have done that once before, and therefore it was saved, and that's why mine was different than yours. Anyway, there's for our case, it didn't really matter whether it was 5.0 or just 5, but I learned something today too. Okay, so we have our data in there. Everybody ready to move on now? Okay, so to create a graph, we're just going to highlight the column headings and the columns. And then you go up to Insert and go down to Chart. Okay, so let me do that again. So highlight the two columns down for the data, go to Insert, Chart, push Enter, and you should have something that kind of looks like that. So it has chosen a line graph probably because it has years, and line graphs probably are what make the most sense. Everybody got that? Good. Okay. So as I showed the other day, you've got a title which uses the column headings. We'll come back to that in a second. So you've got a data tab and a customize tab. So we'll go to data. Let's just look through the different options. So the first one is the type of chart. So we have a line chart by default, but if we click on the menu, you can see all these different choices. So we're going to choose, instead of a line chart, we're going to choose a column chart. So click on column chart. So there you go. We highlighted the data range. If you want to change the data range, you can do that manually. So I could have inserted a chart without any data, and it would just be an empty chart. But by highlighting it, I kind of got a step ahead. Let's see what the next thing is. X-axis. Let's see. Let's click on that and see what it says. Okay. So we could remove the x-axis data. I would assume that's what happens. I'm not going to do that. We can add labels. We actually already have labels, so we don't have to worry about doing that. Let's just I'm going to push edit and see what happens. Okay, so here you could go in and manually change the column that was the x-axis data. In this case, we chose the right one to start with. The series is the second column. So again, we could, if we wanted to choose a different column, we could do that. Now we actually have to manually enter in the cells. So it's cell B1, which is the top of the second column, to B12. You use a colon to show that it's between those two values. So it's B1 colon B12. If you use period, it's not going to work. It has to be a colon. Okay, so hopefully you didn't change anything there. Stacking, that would be if you have a column which is made up of individual parts. So I might, I could have the total unemployment rate made up of different categories that add up to the total. You'd have to specify more range, you'd have to specify more data to do that. We're not worried about that. We don't get too complicated. Let's go ahead for right now. I'm going to go ahead and close the editor. So you can see the graph is covering my data. To move the graph, you just click on the graph and then pick some place that's not inside the data, maybe up here at the top, and just drag it out of the way. So that allows you to look at the data and see the graph. Now, one thing about this is I can make changes to the data now, and it's going to show up on the graph. So let's say I go over here, and instead of 9.1, I put in 12 and enter. So you can see that particular entry changed. If I go undo, it goes back to where it was, and it automatically scales everything. It's really only changing this one, actually this, well, it would be this one. This one I think it must be changing, because that's 9.8. So it automatically, there's this thing, what do they call, what if things? If you're looking at something and you say, well, what if I change that? How would it affect something? So this allows you to change something and then automatically see how it affects the result. Now, you can include the graph with the data, or you can put the data on or the graph on a separate page. So we're going to do that now. So go ahead and click on the graph again, and you'll see there's this 3 dots. That's a pull-down menu, apparently, nowadays. So you can edit the chart, you can delete the chart, you can save the image, publish the chart, copy the chart. So we'll publish the image later, but let's edit, go back. Well, no, what we're going to do is we're going to move to own sheet. So click on that. And what that does is it has created another sheet. If you look down here at the bottom of the screen, you'll see something that says sheet 1 and it says chart 1. So now the chart, instead of being with the data, is separate. If you click here, you'll see there's just the data by itself. And if you click here, you'll see the chart by itself. So that, if you want to see the chart by itself, that's what you would do. Okay. Now you can change the titles of the tabs by going down here at the bottom. So let's click on the menu thing, and so we can delete this. We can delete the whole sheet. We can duplicate it if we want to. We're just going to rename it, and you'll see that it highlights the word down at the bottom. So we'll say unemployment chart instead of just chart. So that this is an unemployment chart. And if you click on sheet 1 and push the arrow key and then rename it, we're going to call this data. Okay, so that's, and push enter. So this is the data sheet. If I come back later and I want to look at the chart, then I click on there. If I want to see the data, I click on there. Okay, now we're gonna edit the chart some. So we're going back to edit it now. So you come back to this menu. It's on the data. We're going to go to the customize. So these are all the things you can change. We don't want to change the chart style. We've already changed it. But if we wanted to, we could do that. So if you click on this, you'll see all the different choices for different kinds of, well, actually that doesn't tell you what it does. Huh. I guess you have to go back to data to do that. You could change the background color at least. So let's just see what happens there. Choose a background color. Which I don't like that because it's it's distracting, right? Just try a couple of different background colors and see if there's anything better than white. So I'm going back to none. My personal opinion, being a guy, is I like white. So, but you know, you can change the background color if you wanted to. It doesn't always make things better. I wonder what, I don't know what this means. Let's see what happens. Oh, okay. And what is 3D? Oh, okay. That's pretty cool. So if you do 3D, the columns become like three-dimensional blocks. That's pretty. I kind of like that. Let's leave that there. Okay. Chart. Everybody okay so far? Everybody good? I'm going slow enough. Chart axis and chart and axis titles. So there are. Let's click on this type. So there's three choices. There's the chart title, and the chart title is this thing right here. You can also put a subtitle if you want more information, which we don't have a subtitle. So we just have a chart title. This would be your horizontal axis title, and this would be your vertical axis title. So let's change the title to The Great Recession. I don't know how you spell recession though. Is that it? The Great Recession. Okay. If you push, well, you don't even have to push enter. It already changes it automatically. And you can change the font, the color, whether it's here's the color. So I might actually change the color because it's kind of hiding in the background there. So let's make it darker. And I want to make it a little bigger, so we'll go to font size. It must have been 16 because it didn't change. So let's try 20. It also looks like you can just click in there and make the changes if you want to change the word. So you can change the title here, or you could actually click in the graph and change it. You know, it's like, you know, it's computer stuff. You can't hurt anything. So, you know, a lot of times it's just a matter of trying things out, see what happens. Okay, so that was the chart title. Let's go to the menu and pick another type. Let's pick horizontal axis title. So its default is year. That's the column heading. Again, it's kind of small, so let's make it a little bit bigger so you can read it maybe better. We'll change the color a little bit. It's a little darker. I'm not being very consistent with my colors, but it's. And let's go to vertical axis title. Make that a little bit bigger. Change the color of that. It's completely up to your control on what you do here. Okay, so those are the titles. Let's click on series. So the series is the actual data. So if I want to change the color of these bars, that would be done here. we'll see what happens when we choose that. You try to stay reasonably in sync with me, but if you just want to try and see what it does, let me just give it a try. So let's say I wanted red, so there's red. You can put the data either on the left-hand side or the right-hand side. It's up to you. I'm a left-handed kind of guy, so that's where I would put it. Let's click on trend line, see what that does. Okay, so that actually, it's trying to fit a curve to this data, which in this case doesn't really make much sense, but that's what it would do. Okay, so that's what series does. It allows you to control what these are. I think what this will do is actually put the numbers, the actual values above the bars. Let's try that. Is that what happens? Yeah. So it actually puts it inside the bars. So this is useful if you want to know the exact value without having to go over and look to the left-hand side. Why would you not do that? Just because sometimes things get too busy, or if maybe the numbers are longer. We have them to 1 decimal point, so it fits within the bar, but I bet if we had 10 decimal points, it would just look terrible. So let's leave that on there. Okay, next thing is the legend. So the legend is right here. How many people think the legend serves a purpose? So vote yes, I think the legend serves a purpose. Okay, how many people think the legend in this case doesn't serve a purpose? So the reason the legend doesn't make much sense here is because I only have one condition. If I had an unemployment rate in US and unemployment rate in France or something like that, and I put those next to each other and they had different colors, then I would want to know which column is the American one and which one's the French. But in this case, the unemployment rate is already right here. We already know it's unemployment rate. So it doesn't really provide any additional information. So in this case, and for the case of your project, you won't need a legend. The choices are where you put the legend, or you can say, I don't want a legend. So let's remove the legend. And what that does is it just frees up space that you can make the graph bigger, because you want it as big as possible so that you can see things easily. So you want to get rid of space that's not useful. You want to make the labels large enough that you can read them. You want a title that's reasonably descriptive of what's going up, but not necessarily just X versus Y versus X, but something that's, I kind of gave you a small title. I probably should make it a little bit more. So that's mostly what you do. You could put the legend, to the right. The problem, or you could put it to, if you put the legend on the top, the advantage there is you get space in this direction. So sometimes the top is actually better because it allows you to spread it out in this direction, and you could put especially when it's words like this. So, but in this case, I don't need a legend, so I'm getting rid of that. And then you can change the axes. So let's choose the horizontal axis. What problem do you see in the horizontal axis as I have it? What's that? You can barely see them, and also what's happening here? They don't show certain years. Now obviously you can figure that out, but it might be nicer to have, so the two things, let's fix it, let's make it larger. We'll come back to that. The other thing is that there's probably somewhere here that allows you to have more of the numbers show up. Question is, I'm not sure which one that is. Oh, okay. Very good. So what it did, because they were numbers, whoops, it was assuming there were numbers. And therefore, it said, oh, I can leave out certain numbers because you can interpolate it. You know, it's not necessary to put numbers everywhere. But if these turned out to not be years, if they were something like, you know, any descriptor, whatever descriptor was, which is not numerical, then you would want each one to be described. You couldn't interpolate this if this was something like Virginia and this was West Virginia. You can't figure out what's in between because, you know, it's not a number. So you'd have to show the labels for each year. And so by treating the labels as texts, it automatically says I've got to put something on every bar. So thank you, that was good. I knew it was got to be somewhere here. Let's see what happens if we click reverse axis order. Okay, so we changed the years from largest to smallest. Well, in this case, it's just the opposite order. Okay, and if you wanted to go back, where do we have to go to change the size of the numbers? Which one of these choices? If you remember back, it's probably the, well, that's the actual title. It might actually still be here. It's still there. Yeah, it's in that choice. So if you go to the horizontal axis, that includes the labels. So you would choose this one and make them bigger, like that. Now, obviously, if you make them too big, let's see what happens. Oh, that's pretty cool. So what it's done is it figures if the things are too large to fit horizontally, it automatically slants them. I didn't know it would do that. Well, okay, let me come and see what you got. Okay, so customize and probably here.
Horizontal axis, but I don't know where you would go to type anything in and make it show up. And I went to the data sheet, I have it, information in.
Yeah, okay. Let's see if we can figure that one out.
Did she take them off? Like if you go to the axis? Maybe.
Oh, we'd have to choose horizontal axis. Did you have them there at one point?
No.
They've never been there. Okay. Let's just look here. Oh, okay. I think it's because of what you've got here. Okay, so what we would do is we would click on that and see it's only choosing column B. What we need is column A, starting at A1 and then putting a colon, and it was B13 or something like that?
It was
12. Okay. Oh, didn't like that. Oh, that's the data range. Okay, sorry. That actually was true. So let's go back here. It was B. That's the data. Okay, I know what's going on. For the x-axis, he doesn't have an x-axis. So what you need to put in there is A1 colon A12. And it's not liking that. Oh, I've got to put, it's on data sheet. Okay, let me, it was easy. Okay, data sheet. Okay, what I was trying to do is match this format here. So oh, there's one. Where is one? Oh, it's right there. There it is. So I guess you just need one of those. Okay.
And then it's so complicated.
Okay, does that match up?
Yeah, it should.
Okay, let's see what it does. Oh, it's still not. It
No,
says
you have to
invalid.
capitalize.
Capitalize the A's.
Yeah, I don't think you need to capitalize A, but
Maybe it's too long. It looked like it when you deleted one letter.
Is that highlighted in her sheet?
what I was hoping was you could actually go and, because we put it on a separate sheet,
That's
okay,
P.
yeah, see when you had that thing, you had this whole column highlighted. What you needed to do was to do that. And then when you, what happened to your menu? Did you make, oh, there it is. Insert chart, make it into a column chart. So I'm starting over because it's easier to do that. So now you can see the labels are there, and it was because you needed to initially to highlight both this column and that column.
Okay, I think I can remember everything to do that.
Yeah. Just trying to get it into a point here that you can be close to where we are right now. And to get the horizontal axis treat as labels. There we go. So it's pretty much where it needs to be. It's just got a few font things, but that's, you're close enough to where you need to be. Okay, let me go back here and change the font back to something a little more reasonable. That was actually too much. Okay, now we're back in business again, so let me have your attention. Okay, so that's pretty much what you're going to do for your for your project. You've just got a different set of data. Now, once you have created this graph, let's go ahead and close the menu. What could we do with this graph before we're going to create two more different kinds of graphs? But we can publish the chart. So let's click on that and see what it does. So you can publish it. So what this would be is if you wanted to publish it on the web. So it would actually create a URL somewhere, Google something or other. So that's okay, but that's not what I really want. If you save the image, so what it will do is it creates a PNG file, and we're just going to save the file right now. So go ahead and click save. So just in case you weren't paying attention, go to save image. We're going to save the file. We're not going to open it right now. So just say OK, and what it has done, I'm on Mozilla, so it's actually in your download directory. If you go to your folder and you look under downloads, it's probably there somewhere. So let me so here it is, chart. Okay. What I did, you guys, if you're on your personal computer, what I usually do, I have so many downloads, I click on the date up at the top, and that orders it into the most recent file to the latest file. So it always puts your most recently downloaded file, and so I can find it fairly quickly. Okay, so that's the image. Now, let's say I wanted to do a presentation for Mr. Shaver, and he said, I want a PowerPoint presentation, and I don't know whether he does PowerPoint. Does he do PowerPoint? How would I get that chart into PowerPoint? So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to show you how to do that. You don't need to know how to do this for the project. I'm just kind of giving you an idea, and if you ever need to do it, come and say, hey, can you tell me how to do that again, because I forgot. But I want to show you that you can actually do it. So I'm gonna open PowerPoint. How many people have used PowerPoint in this class? Most everybody? Okay. So let me open PowerPoint. So you want it to include, if you want to include this graph that you created, you could create it in Excel or you could create it in Google Sheets. So I'm just going to choose a blank presentation, and what you would do is you'd say insert picture. You would go to your wherever you saved it. I'm going to order these according to date. And there's my chart. And if I double click on that, there it is. And so I can then take that image and I can include it in my PowerPoint presentation. If I wanted to put it in my Word document, I do the same thing. If I go to Word, so I open Word, I want to make a report that has a graph. So I'd go there and I'd say insert picture. I'd choose the file that I just made. There it is. And you'd have it for Word. So there you go. Pretty cool. Now, and again, all this is in another video showing you exactly how to do it. So don't worry if you don't get every last little detail. The other thing you can do is if you want to send somebody a copy of this spreadsheet, which I want you to do at the end of class, so I know that you've been doing something. I'll do it now. I'll show you how to do it now, and then we'll do it together at the end. If you go to File, Email as Attachment, that's how you're going to send me your project. Is you're going to finish the project, both today and the one that you're going to do. It's going to be due in about a week and a half. You would email as an attachment. You send it as an Excel file so I can see it better. You put the person's email address on there and you say send, and it'll send me a file with, it'll have attached the file that you've just completed. So that's how you email something to somebody. Okay, now got two more things to do. Let us copy the chart. And it says use Control C. Actually, we can do it another way. If you go down to the bottom where it says employment chart, or whatever yours says, click on that menu and push duplicate. So what you'll see when you duplicate it is you have the original tab, which is the chart tab, and then you have copy. So these are just, they're exactly the same thing. Now, okay, so let me undo, well, let me just, I'm going to delete this. Okay, so you start with your original graph, you go down to the bottom to the little arrow, you click on that, and you go up to duplicate. So what we can now do is we could change this chart to a different kind of chart. So instead of being a column chart, if we click on Edit Chart and go to Chart Type, instead of being a column chart, we can do a line chart. And so everything is the same. The date is the same. The titles, the legends, all the things the same. The only thing that's changed is now it's a line instead of bars. So in the assignment, I ask you to do a column chart, which is what we just did. I also ask you to do a line chart. Well, to do a line chart, just duplicate everything and just change the chart type. So that's easy. And what I would do is, what I ask you to do is I ask you to do something like a bar chart. This is the bar chart. And then this one I would rename, so I click on this and rename it. Instead of copy of an employment, I would say employment line chart. So I know which one's which. So this is your bar chart. This is your line chart. Okay. And what is the third kind of chart I ask you to do? Scatter plot. Okay. So what you would do is you would take this graph go to the bottom, duplicate, so it's the same thing, and you would edit the chart, and instead of line chart, you scroll down and you see scatter chart, and then it looks like that. So now you finish the third kind. So these are just different ways of presenting the same data. So for this kind of data, probably a bar chart or a line chart would be most useful. A scatter chart is usually used for experimental data of some kind. So you might have, let's say you're a medical researcher, and you do drug dosage versus survival time or something like that, you know. So what you would find out at zero dosage, you know, there's some kind of baseline survival. We're talking about cancer or something like that. Then as you increase the dosage, if it's actually effective, you would see the survival time increasing. And then when you get too high dosage, it's probably going to kill you from being too potent, and then you'd see the other direction. And so you'd pick out the recommended dosage that would give you maybe the greatest survival time. But so for this case, it's just showing you how to do a scatter plot. Most likely you wouldn't use a scatter plot for this kind of data, but it does, you know, you can sort of, each plot gives you the same information in just a different manner. And those are the three main kinds. Would be bar charts, line charts, or scatter plots. The only other thing, let's go ahead and one more is if you did a horizontal bar. So if I chose bar this way, the problem is the data is in the wrong direction. So that would actually, I have to change a lot to make it a horizontal bar graph, but so we'll ignore that for right now. Now it's already messed up. Okay, I don't know what happened. We'll just go back here. Pardon me?
We're leaving the last one as scatter plot?
Yeah, they leave the last one as, don't do what I did. Just leave it as scatter plot. If you messed it up, what we could do is you just delete this one and then just repeat the process. So you would duplicate, you would go to edit and pick scatter plot. So if you made the mistake like I did, just change it to a scatter plot and change the name. So employment scatter chart. Call this trend chart. Okay, now we're going to do the second part, but we have a new set of data. So to create a new, we're going to put the data on a separate page. So if you click the plus sign right here, what that'll do is it'll create an empty sheet. And we'll go ahead and do like we just did a while ago. We'll so it creates the sheet. There we go. Okay. So take your, oh, here it is. So your column heading would be race and number, and put in these races. I think I was telling you about the DNA thing the other day. And I said I had some skeleton. Well, I don't know if they're really skeletons. There's nothing I'm ashamed of. But my last name, Nicholson, was actually through the mother. This back in 1820 something. This, I don't know. She was probably early 20s woman, got pregnant. She wasn't married, which back then is a big deal. And so her name was Sarah Nicholson. And the guy who got her pregnant wasn't shown on the the official, there was no official paper to tell who the guy was. So it just said father unknown. And so she named her son after her and not after the father as far as the last name is concerned. So that was one interesting thing. Another one was that my great-grandmother was also a illegitimate child, and that's even more unknown. And then it was somewhere I had first cousins who married, which is not as unusual as you think. Nowadays you think if you married your first cousin, you'd say, ooh, they're going to turn out to be freaks or something like that. Or, the genetics of, back then they probably didn't understand the genetics of first cousins. I mean, obviously brothers and sisters wouldn't marry, but first cousins was not that unusual. This was in 1860, something like that. And so, anyway, sounds more scandalous than it was back then. They also got married very soon. They had a baby very soon after they got married, but I'm not exactly sure. I don't know what's going on. So, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to just highlight the data as we did previously. We go to Insert, Chart. And it has done a bar chart. Actually, let's undo that. We don't want to do that. So let's get rid of that. It'll be back in a second, but let's start over again. I want to create a third column here called percent. So to do percent, so this is going to show you how to make calculations using a spreadsheet. So in the cell that's right below these 5 numbers, I want you to write in this equation: equals SUM, like sum, left parenthesis, then you can highlight this 5 cells, and then a right parenthesis. What that does is it's just going to add the 5 numbers together. So there's 182 people. So what you do is you write it equals sum, left parenthesis, so you got to do equals sum, left parenthesis, then highlight them. Or you could just type in B2 colon B6, but highlight that and then do a right parenthesis. Now the percentage is the percentage of 120 out of 182. All you have to do is divide this number by that number. So if you click in this cell and you put equals, so anytime you have an equation, you put equals. Once you do that, it knows you're doing a formula. Then click in the cell here for where the number 120 is. You don't put the number 120 in, you click the cell with 120. You do the slash, and then you click the cell where there's 182. You can see it kind of gives you a preview of what the answer is, 0.659. Before you push enter though, push F4 on the top. And you'll see that it puts these little dollar signs. And what the dollar sign means is that when I'm going to copy this equation. And when I copy the equation to here, it'll change this to a 3, but it won't change this number. And when I copy it to this one, this number will become a 4, and that's so it uses each one of these as I increment down, but it always uses the same denominator by putting dollar signs in there. Just F4. So again, what you do is you'll do equals, click on cell B2, do slash, cell B7, push F4, and you get the dollar signs. You push enter. Okay, so it's 0.659, which is 65.9%. Everybody got that? You got that? No? Okay. Let's see what you got, where you are in this thing.
I can't figure out how to get F4 on there.
Oh, on your computer? Okay.
I mean, it's right there, but like,
Oh,
look at it does
Oh, it doesn't do that? Oh, you push this, maybe that function thing there. Let's try it. Let's see. Oh, there we go.
Did it work?
Yeah, push the function and then F4. There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you do after you put the first?
Okay, I'm going to tell you in a second. So once you've got that in there. So earlier I was talking about that you can copy equations as well. Just like you copied a number earlier. If you highlight a single cell, so I highlight this cell and you see that it's got this little box on the corner, and I move it until the little cross comes to the corner and I drag it down. What that does is if you click on the second cell, you'll see the equation up here on the left hand side, and the equation is equals B3. So it has incremented this number. So when I copied the equation, it automatically updates this number, but this stayed the same. That's what the dollar signs do. It keeps this cell the same because I always have the same denominators. This number is this divided by that. This is this divided by that, and so forth. So if you have something that stays the same, you use the F4 command to put the little dollar signs in there. Now, it says percent. It's a decimal number. We'll find out in the second semester that you can have the decimal form or you can have the percent form. So in this case, we're going to format it. So we're going to highlight the 5 cells, and you can actually see right here on this menu, mine already has format percent, or you can go format number percent. So by doing that, it converts the decimal numbers to a percent. So 0.6593 is the same as 65.93%. So you've learned how to enter a formula. You've learned how to copy a formula. You've learned how to change decimal to percent. Okay. Now we're going to make the chart. So let's highlight the 3 columns now and see what happens. I think that might give me a bar or a pie chart. Let's see what happens. So we're going to go Insert, Chart. No, it didn't. So that's okay. We'll change it to a. Let's see what happens. We're going to change it to a pie chart and see if it works or not. Oh, there we go. Okay, so pick pie chart. And there's really not a whole lot we can do to a pie chart. So let's just close it, close the editor, see what it looks like. We'll click on the chart and we'll put it on a separate page. So we'll click on the menu, move to Own Sheet. So there it is. So there's my pie chart. It doesn't have a title yet, but everything else looks pretty good because you can see that it's figured out that it gives you the label. It tells you what the value is here, and then the pie chart, all the sizes are appropriately right size. So let's see if anybody's gotten the pie chart. Did you get a pie chart yet? Anybody not get a pie chart? Need some help? Okay, so that was pretty easy, right? Pie chart. I don't think you actually need to change it to percent. I think they would actually. I haven't tried this yet, but we'll try it. So I'm going to go back to my data, and I'm just going to highlight these 2 columns instead of all 3 columns. And I'm going to insert the chart. Still doesn't, it's not picking a pie chart. So we'll go down here to pie chart. Here's suggested. Or let's just go down. Oh. Pie chart. Close it. Click on the chart. Move to Own Sheet. So you can see that it actually did the percentages without me asking to do it. By picking by picking the first column, which was the labels, and the second column, which was actually the numbers. Because it's a pie chart, it automatically calculated the percentage. So I didn't actually have to calculate the percentage in pie charts. You just have to specify the number of each occurrence, and it'll automatically do the rest of it. So the only thing I would think you might want to put on this is a title. So let's see let's see if we can put a title on this thing. So I would go to Edit Chart, Customize Chart and Axes Titles. Actually, oh, here it is. Yeah, there's actually a title. I just didn't see it. Okay, so we don't actually have to put a title in there. There's the title. So it does have a title. There's not as many, because there are no axes, you don't have to worry about formatting those. You don't have to worry about a legend. Well, you have a legend. You have to have a legend for a pie chart. So there's really not a whole lot left that you need to do. The only thing I would do is maybe rename the sheets. So I'm going to rename this as pie data, and then the chart I'll rename as what do you want to call it? Race pie chart. And just like before, if we wanted to save the image, we could save the image to our hard drive, and then we could read it into whatever software we want to use. If we wanted to publish it on the web, let's see what happens. I have never done this before. Publish. Link. Let's see what happens here. Publish. Are you sure you want to publish? Sure, why not? Okay, so now I publish this, and if I copy this URL to my spreadsheet, so you could email this to somebody, and I click on it, there's my pie chart. So that would be, you could send that pie chart link to anybody, and they could access your data on the internet. So that's pretty impressive. So there are a lot of options here to be able to use it. Besides being in a spreadsheet, you can publish it to the web. You can save the image, put it in PowerPoint, Excel, all those kinds of things. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do here is you're going to email me what you've done today. So hopefully you've done something. If it doesn't have to be exactly right. I just want to make sure you've been paying attention, doing something.
Do we need both of the pie charts or just one?
Pardon me?
The pie charts, do we only need one? Or do we need
Yeah, just one's fine. Yeah. Okay, so you go to File, Email as Attachment, choose as an Excel file. Now you could, if you send it as a PDF, that's, the difference is I can edit this file. I can't edit the PDF file. So that's why, not that I'm going to edit it, but, and then put my email address in there, which is SNICHOLSON, snicholson@dslcc.edu. And in the subject, put your name and put graph at the end of it. And in the subject, say, I paid attention. Exclamation mark. Now you can send a copy of that email to yourself if you wanted to. I'm not going to. So again, put as an Excel file, put my address in there, put your name in the subject, message, push send. And if I go into my email, I should start to see emails showing up here. So there's Dakota's. Oh boy, look at all that stuff. Wow. Yeah, so there's, and if I wanted to look at this, say, so I'm looking at Kylie's here. Well, see what she did. So if I double click on it, it'll actually open up in Excel, and then I can see all the great stuff she did today, which is very good. Okay, so that's your project. Basically, except with some other data. So that seems like a good place to stop today. So we'll see. Let's see, what is today? Today is Wednesday.